moving on to part 2 of our program, and we have another guest here, also based primarily in Friesland. We'll get to that in a moment. But you also get a bit of an award for being here. So for those folks at home, this is, and I hope I don't murder this, I'm sorry, Ioannis Katramados.
Yeah, not bad.
From COSMONiO. COSMONiO are cutting-edge artificial intelligence systems based in not only Friesland, but here in Groningen and the UK. Been around about 8 years or so. And actually, you are the first, I will say international, but they might say not Dutch founder to be in Founder Talk. So from one international to another, welcome, congratulations.
Thank you.
We're going to get into what the company does in a moment, but I'd really like to just start with the international aspect. How does a Greek end up in Friesland?
It's basically life gone wrong. So it's a bit of an accident. Well, to start with, my passion was always computers since I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. When my father brought the first computer at home. Well, since then I went to study in the UK. I worked for a great company called TRW Automotive in the automotive sector. I learned, really a lot there. They sponsored my studies later on for my master's and PhD. And the idea was that, we'd simply go and work for them. We had a great relationship. We did a lot of work together. Except my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she got a job in Friesland in the drinking water company called Fittens. I was a software engineer. She had already completed her PhD. I still had to complete mine. So we thought, why don't have a break for 1 year? So she only had a 1-year contract.
Don't worry about the microphone. We got a tech guy just adjusting some stuff on the fly.
And we thought, what can possibly go wrong if we go to Friesland for 1 year? And it was a great year. So actually, I set up the company in my bedroom in Leeuwarden.
Okay, so we go from a garage here to a bedroom here. It's getting even more startup.
I used the services of Incubator Leeuwarden. So Leonard Droffendag helped me massively. He helped me without me speaking Dutch. He had to call all the different, organizations here to set the company up. And there I started in my bedroom, and basically the idea was that I would do some contractor work for my ex-company. But unfortunately, that didn't work out. So I was there with a company that lost its first client. So it goes back to zero right from the beginning. So the next thing I did is actually I went to LinkedIn, which already existed back then, and I posted, hey, I started a company doing computer vision. It's called COSMONiO, and I had a very basic website. And you know how strange life is that one of my ex-colleagues from TRW had also started his own company. He was also doing computer vision by accident. So he contacted me and said, hey, I need help with my product. Can you help? So he became my first client in the UK. The idea was that after the first year was over, I would go back to the UK. Step by step, life evolved, business evolved, and some 8 years later.
You're still here. This is so familiar feeling of my experience.
Netherlands is a really great country. I really enjoy my time here. So I would never, change anything I did those 8 years.
So let's talk a little bit about COSMONiO, because you're also using AI. It's also about images. So it could sound very similar to Zeus over here, but actually you're a very different type of company, right? What is it you guys do?
When I started the company, I was actually doing a lot of consultancy work. So I was using my expertise from the PhD to basically help other companies with their computer vision software. And back then I found a problem. The problem was that, with artificial intelligence, you are training a system with the knowledge that the human has. To analyze the images, basically.
Right. So just for the folks at home that know nothing about AI, you don't unpack it from a box and just say, go. You actually have to teach it and train it, and it gets better over time, right?
Correct, the guys who have the knowledge, they're usually scientists, there are people on the factory floor, there are sometimes manual workers. And these people have to transfer their knowledge into the AI system. But of course, that was not possible. So what was happening and what is still happening for more than 90% of all the companies is that we get a data scientist, we train him up to be some sort of either medical expert or microbiologist or whatever else. And well, he tries to collect as much data as possible and as much knowledge as possible, let's say from the factory floor, and then he trains the AI system by himself. But the link between the person who had the knowledge and the AI system is lost. So what happens next is you go back to the factory floor with a complete system, and as Herod said earlier, you give it to them and you find out it's not what they wanted.
Or it's exactly what they said they wanted, but it doesn't do what they needed.
So it's back to square one again, and you have to do this iteration, this iterative cycle, many, many times to get the product right. And for me, that was not workable for two reasons. First of all, the only way to scale up is to have more of those data scientists, which were very rare to find back then, and they're even rarer to find now. And you had very unhappy customers, so I didn't like either of them. So in 2015, we decided to stop with artificial intelligence, as we call it now, and move more to what we call augmented intelligence. So using artificial intelligence together with human intelligence to kind of build one system and make humans part of the AI system, make the AI system interactive. To do that, of course, there were a lot of challenges because the people who are going to use the AI system have no idea about the technology behind it.
And that's not their job.
No, and it has to be extremely simple, and maybe as simple as using an app on your phone these days. The problem was no one had ever done it at worldwide scale. So we really had to start from zero and to have nothing to copy whatsoever. So it all had to be quite original work. And well, I had some of my own ideas how to do it, and then I recruited someone. I actually advertised internationally. I was very lucky that one of the godfathers of deep learning, Joshua Bengio, he advertised my job posting on his website. So it was the #1 website in the world back then. And actually, a Dutch guy called Ioannis Katramados applied, who is today our CTO. And well, he was really great. I mean, he was a person with 2 degrees in medicine and machine learning. He was right, the guy.
Like the perfect unicorn.
Yeah. And then I realized I knew nothing about AI because the guy was so knowledgeable, and all my ideas were basically really bad. And he took my ideas and said, that's how we're going to do it. And step by step we evolved, and I was more on the user experience side because I was the person going to the customers and trying to understand how they work. And of course, I'm also a software developer, so I was helping with the software at the beginning. And Lawrence was more of the let's say father of the software.
Yeah, the kind of more fundamental end of things.
Yeah.
And so for those folks at home, essentially your product is now a sort of platform product where your clients, if I understand correctly, can basically take the product and start training it themselves super simply, not as complex as it was back when you first started. And I can imagine not as complex as some of the stuff that you've been working with to really fine tune it on one thing, but you're making it accessible to people to do it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if you are building a really big product for a really large market, the way Herod does this the right way. I mean, you have to host that product within a company, and you have to build it step by step.
Yeah.
But not every product, not every AI solution that you produce can be built, in advance.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people out there, in labs, factories that really need a system that learns from them. And even the AI system itself has to change depending on the season of the year sometimes. So it has to evolve.
Let's give the folks at home an example of this. And I looked at your website, obviously, and you've got clients like Google and Johnson & Johnson. I'm going to ask you nothing about those because I saw something fantastic online. I hope you're going to forgive me for this. This is the image the folks at home can see right now. This was a project I saw announced, I think just a few weeks ago, Slugbot. And for me, it doesn't matter what you're doing with Google. Slugbot, tell us. I mean...
it's a great story. Actually, one of the first people to join the company, and he's been with us for 7 years now, Oliver Hamilton. Well, he goes to a lot of meetups in the UK, and well, he came across a company that was looking for an AI solution to basically detect and kill slugs because yeah, they're really damaging for the agriculture, and we're also currently using a lot of chemicals which are really bad for water and health to exterminate them. We are already working with a company called Small Robot Company. It's a very cool British company, and we help them with automatic weeding, so electrocuting the weed basically using AI. And we thought, well, maybe we can do the same with slugs. So it's not, you know, in COSMONiO, we're one of our biggest clients is actually Naturalis in Leeuwarden, and we're 100% for biodiversity. And of course, yeah, we don't like to kill animals in this way. But of course, when it comes to agriculture, we kill them anyway with very heavy chemicals.
And do so much more damage. Yeah.
So this is a more kind of environmentally friendly way of...
And so you've basically got a robot company in the UK building the robot to deal with it, but of course they need the image sensing, the identification, and that's where you're...
Yeah, we're contributing our AI platform, but the project is run, or the product is run by the robot company.
Yeah. For me, that might be the most easy to understand product for an AI I've ever heard of.
Most of the time, as I say, what COSMONiO does is we sell empty brains, and you have to fill them up.
Wow. Okay.
It sounds kind of bad thing to say, like an empty brain, but yeah, really, I mean, it's not far from the truth.
Yeah. And just like Zeus, you're an internationally focused company. I can imagine why. I mean, you came from Greece via the UK to here. You've also got products that transcend borders. But what I also noticed is you've got a very international team. How big is the team now?
Yeah, we're with 25 people spread across many different locations, but the main one is here in Groningen, location, a small office in Leeuwarden and another office in the UK, but also people in Nijmegen and in Rotterdam. And it is a very international team. I mean, my ambition for getting involved in AI was really to solve, the human interaction problem with AI. It was always my dream. It has always been an obstacle to really deploying AI at large scale. And since no one had ever done it before, as a product, we really needed to get the best people we could possibly find. And, saying I'm going to find the best engineers, but bring all of them to Friesland or to Groningen, it's not realistic. It's not going to work.
You haven't told them this is the best place in the world to live.
I did tell them, but for some reason they would still not come. Yeah. I don't understand why, but yeah. The idea since the beginning was, let's find the best people we can possibly find, and if they cannot come over, they cannot come over. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're coping very well with lockdown at the moment, because we're locked down anyway.
And you have 10 different nationalities, and yes. 10 of the teams, so half almost, are also PhD level. So, I mean, that's super smart people, right?
Well, when you're a startup, you cannot afford to train people. So we wanted to recruit people who already know a lot, who can really contribute to the team straight away. And of course, you have to pay them a lot more, but it's still much more beneficial than training everyone from scratch. Of course, that was the case at the very beginning. Now we're recruiting at all different levels, and some of the best people we have are from bachelor level at the moment. So PhD is not a way to, let's say, earn more money in COSMONiO. It's only meant to contribute to the company with the knowledge you have after at least 3 or 4 years of research. Yeah.
And you also give quite a lot of lectures. I saw, I think I got you switched. You're doing it in Groningen, you're doing it in Leeuwarden. What triggers you to do that as a founder?
When you start a company, you learn a lot about how the real world works. And myself, having spent quite a lot of years in university for my bachelor's, master's, and then PhD, I was always surprised how big a gap there is, because there are people doing research in academia, and then I was applying my knowledge to the real world, and the two were very different. So when the opportunity came up to go to a University of Applied Sciences in Leeuwarden, NHL Stenden, I immediately, jumped on the opportunity and accepted it, because applying knowledge to practice is really what drives innovation. And yeah, I wanted to be part of it and to give something back from what I learned. And I have to say, it was one of the best decisions I ever made, because I actually walked away from my company for a bit. So I was 3 days a week in education and 2 days a week in the company. I had more people to do the job by then, and we didn't need a lot of management. But this is one of the most enjoyable times I had. Since then, I had to scale it down again and get back to the company.
Focus.
Yeah, we have a new data science department running with NHL Standard, and yeah, I'm very proud of all the work we did with also the computer vision department of NHL Standard. There's some really great people there with a lot of knowledge that yeah, don't often get as appreciated as they should be. But Leeuwarden really has a very strong computer vision team.
And is that also good for you from a recruitment perspective, or do you see them as two totally separate things?
No, I mean, I tried to keep those separate, because the phase when I joined NHL Standing, we were only recruiting PhDs, and NHL Standing does not have PhDs. No. So it was not interesting for recruitment back then. Of course, recently we have started recruiting from different levels as well. But again, for us, we advertise all the positions, and we really want to get the best applicants. So whether they come from Leeuwarden or from the other side of the world, we don't care. We have people with bachelors from Morocco, and we brought them over here because they were really good. So.
Yeah. And you said when you were able to take that time to step out, it was easy to manage the team, but you've got a remote team by definition, because you said you can't bring them all here. 10 different native languages, I guess. So I assume that English is currently your kind of default. How is that easy to manage? That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, it sounds complex. On the other hand, for me, it is a blessing, because people who come from different cultures have very different ways of thinking. And very different ways of thinking means we can approach problems in a completely different way than we would do otherwise. So for me, this is a chemical reaction that's happening, right? When you put so many people from so different backgrounds together, and of course you have to make sure there is no explosion. But so far, it's really working great. And for me, I would never do it in another way if I had to do it again. It really works.
So it started with you sort of coming here by accident, and then staying here by accident, and then by accident losing your first customer. But it's obviously going well because you're doing good now, and you've got some great clients. What didn't go so well? Because it's easy for us to sit here and go, oh yeah, it's fantastic when we look back. But that's not really where we learn from, right?
Yeah, I mean, one quote that has stuck with me for the past several years is what Steve Jobs said back in the days, that to run a company you have to be completely crazy, because any kind of sane person, any kind of sensible person, will never want to do it. And I never understood what he meant at the beginning. But as the company was growing, yeah, you see this constant worry, this constant, keeping asleep at nights, and working very late, waking up in the morning, losing all your free time, all your hobbies, and the only thing you do is really focus and work on the product that you are developing. And of course, this is life-changing, and especially when you have a family, you sacrifice even your family time to a certain extent. So you have to be crazy to do that. I mean, it's not actually enjoyable. I can say that. It's very nice looking back, because you say, hey, look how much you have achieved. But when you're in the middle of it, it's actually quite painful. But of course, it's the passion for technology that drives me, at least. And I really want to make AI more accessible for the world. So I think, it's time that I needed to take to do that.
And as I mentioned, we hear a lot about AI, right? And, this is currently the most hip thing happening over the last few years. And of course, on the one hand, we hear it's going to take over the world, and I don't believe that for a moment. I'm technical enough to know that you've got broad AI and narrow AI, and we're still in the world of very narrow AI. We've got a calculator on our phone, and it can do precisely one thing, and that is add up numbers. It's now going to take over the world soon. But what's your perspective on what AI is doing? Is there things that we shouldn't be doing with it?
For me, AI is the nuclear energy of software. It's as powerful and it's as important. And like with nuclear energy, you can choose whether you want to build nuclear bombs or whether you want to do, green energy out of it, and even drugs for treating cancer, right? So I should apologize to Erin for saying earlier, don't even start, because the only reason I said it is not to discourage you, but because I know from a technical perspective, it is as complex as nuclear energies. And it has taken us years and a lot of PhDs and a lot of, energy to actually understand what it ever does, how it works, and how do you even, evolve it in the way you want. And to build this deep knowledge is the only way to build a different product. Otherwise, you will be using, what already exists out there to rebuild what everybody else is rebuilding, and you cannot have a company this way. Yes, I mean, AI is getting bigger, but I agree there is a huge amount of hype around it because we advertise it for the wrong reasons. It will make a huge difference in medical, there is no doubt about that. It will make a huge impact on, security and in basically every aspect of our lives. But, it will happen in small incremental steps. So we're nowhere near getting to human level intelligence or general intelligence. So I think, any talk about that is, well out of the way.
And what's coming next for COSMOniO? What's kind of like the next big step?
Yeah, well, since 2016, we've been building our news product. It's this interactive AI product. And this year, we're going to turn it really international. We've been working really hard on this. And yeah, for us, getting this into the hands of millions of users is what we're really after. So yeah, we are on our way to do that.
Sounds like a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's insane amount. Not just by myself, by a whole team of people who really work, day, nights, weekends, holidays. But they do it because they like to do it.
Yeah, and I can see just like Gerrit earlier, your eyes are lighting up talking about this. You live for the challenge, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like exploring completely new ground, right? Things you've never seen before, and actually you don't know what will come out of it. So yeah, actually you need to be willing to fail because the chances of failing are actually a lot higher than succeeding. And I always do everything with that in mind, that, it can all go completely wrong and it can go completely out of business.
So how do you approach that level of uncertainty? If you think, okay, I'm doing something cutting edge, I have no idea if this could succeed, but my gut feeling says it's important. How do you live with that constant feeling?
Well, it worries you. That's why I'm saying it's painful. It's not easy. And it took us actually 4 years to really start getting some recognition for it because, for 4 years, there were a lot of question marks over what we were doing. And it was like, you're completely crazy. And, having to push forward and say, hey, just leave me alone.
Yeah.
I think that was the hardest thing because, of course, the people who are telling you those things are not, they also know what they're talking about. So it's not like you can just dismiss them. They could be right. For me, I think that was the biggest worry, that I may be doing the wrong thing.
Maybe you are actually crazy and not just slightly crazy.
You have to be crazy.